Good afternoon. This is your County Executive Ed Day. We're here for a bi-weekly update on the COVID-19 crisis here in Rockland County. Again, I'm here with my proverbial man behind the curtain, John Lyon, who is my communications director. And as I usually tell people on the outset of our broadcast, have a pen and paper handy. We will be putting websites up in the comment section of the Rockland County government page where this video will be posted. But you may want to write some things down as we go along also. I guess I know we have a fair amount of questions, right? I want to thank everybody for contacting us. This has been very beneficial, I think, to everybody, because we're fleshing out a lot of the questions that seemingly are not getting across, but these broadcasts are helping us get that information out to you. And if you wish to if any of your friends who don't have Facebook, we do an email blast the following day with this information and with this video. So you can, if you have friends or who don't use Facebook, they could sign up for emails at edday.us. That's edday.us on the main page. Just put your email address in there, and you'll be getting all the messages we send out from my office.
Okay, thank you everyone who's submitting questions. There's a lot of specifics, a lot of details, a lot of things changing pretty regularly here, so we understand that there's a lot going on. And thank you for sending us the questions.
Right.
So
yes.
We'll get right into it. First up, can you repeat the current schedule for entering future phases as it stands right now?
Right now, we're in phase 2. The current schedule puts us in phase 3 on June 23rd and puts us in phase 4 on July 7th. Now, I am very well aware of the fact that July 7th is 3 days after the birthday of our country. We and my colleagues in the Mid-Hudson region, county executives who make up the control room, have been bringing this issue up. We brought it up very early on, that July 7th date for phase 4, where we would have gatherings, fireworks displays. We cannot miss this. I don't know how else I can say this. The celebration of the birth of our country, especially in troubled times, is a necessary thing to do. So absent some kind of crazy spike, I understand schedules are put out for a reason, but the governor himself has said that it is not something that's set in stone. And we're going to be pushing very hard that as long as our numbers are well, we want to see July 4th be celebrated the way we always do. That's what we do as Americans. We do this in the control room. We've been making this case to speed up the process on a number of fronts, because our numbers locally are very good. Now, we have not seen any spikes at all as of yet, and as we mentioned earlier, we have a dashboard now that is real time. We see spikes immediately. But I want to reassure everybody, just because we want to do things as rapidly as we can, the phrase is rapidly as we can. That's a very important thing to keep in mind, because we're not doing things in a haphazard or reckless manner. We've gone through too much here, and seemingly a number of the things, we don't know which ones work the best, but a number of the things that everybody has been doing, including all of you obviously, has worked to some extent. We've driven down we've not just flattened the curve, we've driven it downward. So we're very closely watching the data to make sure that we are doing things the right way. We will always be focused on our motto, safety first and people always, and we will conduct ourselves with that thought in mind.
Okay. The governor recently announced that school districts would be allowed to have special education classes plans for the summer. What can you tell us about what's happening here in Rockland?
Right. This is the letter we got from Rockland BOCES. It's on their website, but I wanted you to see it. We did get the letter from Mary G. Marsico and Amy Albers and Julie Lawson, detailing the surprise they got when they heard that there'll be an opening. Look, Rockland BOCES provides special education services here in Rockland County, and they did announce in this letter that's posted to their website today that they will be providing extended school year programming through distance learning, essentially online by and large, this summer. Over the last few days, they have reviewed issues pertinent to availability of staffing, personal protection equipment, availability, classroom space and common area space, configurations, and the latest public health guidance. These are things that people take time to do the right way. The new public health guidance that they've been received from the State Department of Health, not the county, requires that significant additional planning and protocols be developed before they are able to provide in-person services. That is what the direction has been from the State Department of Health. We have been urging repeatedly on this particular matter, and those who have been tuning in have heard me speak of the various things we have been pushing on to get done, and we are very frustrated by the time it takes. This is another one of those situations where the governor waited very long to make a decision, and now we're in a situation where they don't have enough time to prepare. So I want everybody to understand this. BOCES is a fine organization. Dr. Mary Giamarsico is a stellar administrator, does a great job there, and so does the people who work there alongside her. I want families to understand this because I've been there a number of times with Jesse Capital School graduations. It's a very special time with very special people, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy. In fact, Julie Lawson, I actually coached her son in baseball many, many years ago. But I want people to understand that BOCES did nothing wrong here. BOCES was prepared as they could be. This was foisted upon them because it took so long to address something that we had asked for a number of weeks as a matter of fairness. But here's the good news. BOCES believes they'll be able to meet these requirements in time for the opening of school in September, and that is critically important. So the short-term interruption seemingly will be fine come the fall. They are developing a comprehensive reopening plan with all of Rockland County school districts, which will ensure the safety of their students and also their staff. And for the summer, they'll provide a blend of live instruction and self-paced learning activities in order to implement each student's individualized education program, or the IEP, to the greatest extent possible. And this will take place from July 6th through August 17th, Monday through Friday. And we will share a link to the information that BOCES has provided in the comment section of this thread on the Rockland County Government Facebook page.
Okay. What phase will wedding venues be allowed to open?
Okay, large gatherings and event venues remain closed as they have not been specified yet what phase they're going to be included in. Again, a source of frustration. It would seem to me that if there's no reason why this cannot be more descriptive right now and basically say, yes, a wedding is okay in phase 4, obviously if we enter phase 4, because if something happens in phase 3 that mandates us dialing everything down, phase 4 would not occur, at least for a while longer. So, but it's the not knowing that is really getting people very worked up, and I certainly understand that. It's likely we'll be allowed to reopen under phase 4. That's our best guess right now, and that's what we have to deal with because we are not driving this proverbial train. We are working in a control room and dealing with the governor's staff. But we don't know what the restrictions will be. So I don't know if you're having something planned. You may have to presume for a moment it may be only up to 50% occupancy. So if you have a place where a catering facility where you have a 250 max, you may be looking at 125 people as being allowed to be in that place at one time. So that cap will probably be in play, but again, we don't know. If we find out, we will certainly let you know. That's what we're here for today. But ultimately, the decision is made by the governor and New York State. And again, as I said earlier, I understand your frustrations, that this can be trying for all of us to plan a ceremony, especially a blessed ceremony like a wedding. My own goddaughter, my only goddaughter, she has had her wedding postponed twice, and she's marrying a New York City police officer. That in of itself is causing great stress and strain on the family. We don't know what's going to happen. My nephew got married, and a number of his co-workers couldn't come because they were called out in an emergency. So it's a very difficult situation. And John is behind. John, you can't see John, but he's the young, good-looking guy behind on the other side of the camera. He's nodding at me because there were 4 weddings that he and his wife were planning to attend this year, and they've all been rescheduled for some point in the summer of 2021. So again, we understand it, but as we get information from these control room conversations or direction, we will share it with you.
Okay. Other states that are further along in the reopening process than us, some of them are starting to see a large increase in cases. Right. Texas has shown a 42% increase since Memorial Day. Is continuing the phased reopening here in New York a smart move? It
is a very smart move. We're doing things here, and again, there are things I disagree with as far as the governor's direction, but there are things we do agree with. It is being done responsibly. Obviously, there's a lot of conjecture here because of the nature of this virus. But we just don't know yet how it is targeting people because many of the original thoughts have been shot out of the water at this point. They don't know how this virus is working. So there's been a responsible approach to this. I think it could be better in some ways, but I'm not going to spend the day criticizing that. The fact of the matter is that we're doing this slowly and responsibly, and we're keeping a close eye on the data, and that's very, very important. We have a publicly available dashboards. We have contact traces in place to take proactive steps if we do see an increase in case numbers, and that goes back to the expertise and the action and experience we had here in Rockland with the measles epidemic. This is where experience counts, and we have a tremendous team with the health department. That contact tracer effort allows us to proactively isolate and quarantine those who have been exposed from infecting others. And this is a critical piece of combating an epidemic like we did with the measles last year. And that has not been fully implemented in many of the states. That's something that has been kind of overlooked. Not here in New York State and not here in Rockland County. So it's a balance. We're looking at what's going on. We're making sure we do nothing reckless. And again, we had we have our motto, safety first and people always. We also found out that, again, a lot of guessing here, but we have no known immunity to this, no vaccination to this virus, but we seem to have found some basic things. Social distancing, washing your hands, wearing a face covering. These things seem to be working. I mean, you can't argue with the numbers. The numbers have dropped tremendously. So I would, again, just recommend to people, as annoying as a face covering can be, keep it on, when you need to. If you cannot socially distance yourself or you're in an area where you can't stay 6 feet away from someone, then by all means have a face covering on, and you should wash your hands. So, we're being reminded in a very direct way that proper and basic hygiene is critically important to good health.
This is a concern for a lot of people out there. When can we visit loved ones in senior living facilities? Will you push the state for an answer on visiting nursing homes and these types of places?
We have been pushing for an answer, and it is a horrible thing to field phone calls from my neighbors who are in the situation and hear the pain and anguish in their voice, the hurt. It is horrible. So we have been, we hear you. The other county executives also understand this. But the bottom line is the governor of New York State has not let up on the one thing about visits being allowed. The governor today said something that no visitation at nursing homes, in his words, was better than death. Look, I can agree with the sentiment. Nobody wants to die, but I see it as a very dismissive comment. I really do. It is important to figure out a way to allow for visits instead of just dismissing it in that manner. Even if it takes place outdoors, socially distant, mental health needs to be taken into account as well as considering these rules. The bottom line is that these are relatives, these are loved ones who are alone, and they have very little interaction, and they can't see you. And it's a horrible thing, it really is. So be assured that we are continually pressing on this matter, and we will continue to press on this matter to try to get some alternate way devised by the state to allow for human contact with your loved ones.
Has there been any word recently on what the guidelines for day camps are?
We have gotten them just maybe yesterday, I think they were posted up there. The guidelines for child care and day camps have now been posted on the forward.ny.gov website. That's forward.ny.gov. Check the statewide guidelines section. We also have posted a direct link to the comment section in the comment sections of this video.
How come certain offices can be open in Rockland without social distancing? This person writes in that face masks can be worn, but is aware of an office of 50 people in cubicles where that's not being done.
Okay. Well, if that office is supposed to already have an affirmation on file with the state, any office that's open right now, must fill in for a safety plan for that office. There are templates on the forward.ny.gov website that make it a relatively easy task. You have to affirm that you are following that plan, and you have to download a copy of it and keep it on file, so in case it has to be looked at by an inspector of some sort. So the offices have very specific guidelines, as you can well imagine. If you want to know this, to this person who called in, or who posted the question, go to the website and take a look at what the guidelines are. Make sure that they are being followed. I can't answer that from here, but you work there and you can look at the website and you can actually see what is expected to be done at that facility. Social distancing is part of it. This must be followed. This is not a question of, an if, and, or a but. It has to be followed. And I say the guidelines are on that website under phase 2. But here's what it comes down to. If you work in an office that is not following the proper guidelines, you can make a complaint to the New York State Department of Labor. We will post a link in that section to the complaint form and in the comment sections.
A question close to the hearts of a lot of parents right now: when are the playgrounds opening? We want to get the kids out of the house for a little while.
Getting a little stir crazy. Well, I got good news. This is excellent. Today it was announced that playgrounds will be open. Now we have no further details on that, but they're authorized to be open. Common sense things, obviously, distancing. One of the things that have been used regularly is not a group of more than 10 at any one area of the park. There's probably going to come into play, but those guidelines will come out. But for now, the playgrounds are open. The guidelines that should be implemented immediately by whomever the overseer of that playground is should be coming from the CDC website for now. And again, basic common sense. Social distancing, face covering, etc.
Today, we also received a number of very specific questions about the guidelines from the Forward New York website, everything from facial services to spa guidelines, testing requirements. Can you provide me with these specific answers, or where's a good resource to go for me to find them?
All right, I don't like this, but this is going to be one of those answers that's going to be very unsatisfactory, and I'll apologize up front for that. The bottom line is that we don't have any other information other than what is posted on the website. We have had frustrations, my fellow county executives and I. The bottom line in a crisis like this, and again, most of you do know I'm a former police commander. Crisis management is a forte when you get to a certain level of rank in law enforcement, and I was involved in that, obviously. The bottom line is that to have this run on TV every day at 11:30 is not helpful, because as soon as things are announced, we get phone calls. As soon as we get a phone call, we don't have an answer. There's no preparation. There are a number of things that have come up and come through because of the county executives insisting that something be done in certain areas. That's what's called listening to your field generals, and that's the way it should be done. So it is a frustration, but everything that we tell you, you are hearing and seeing at the same timeline we are, and the information is essentially with the websites. The decisions rest with the governor's office. And if you have super specific questions that you want to reach out to the governor's office for answers. You can contact the governor's office through an online form, and we'll provide a link to that later. You can also call the governor's office at 518-474-8390. Now look, I know there's a lack of clarity in these rules and decisions. I know it's frustrating, but I want all of you to understand I feel the same frustration, and what I will assure you is that regardless of whatever lack of information we have, or maybe not total information, we will give you the best guidance we can. It'll be guidance that you can follow. It'll be guidance that you will not be in a position where you'll be inspected and failed. That could be one of the concerns, especially for businesses. If we tell you what we believe is to be, we're saying that straight out, and that's being expressed to our troops, basically, our health department, the towns and villages who are helping us with inspections of the various locations. They all know we're taking what I lovingly call a horseshoes and hand grenades approach. If it's close, that's fine. We're not looking to fine people. You had a tough enough time as it was already. We're looking to gain compliance with common sense guidelines. and to comport with a plan of action at your location that makes sense and it's consistent with the safety guidelines put out by the state.
When will funeral services be able to resume?
Funeral services are allowed. They have been allowed for a while. The caveat has been only up to 10 people could be at the services. I find it somewhat ironic that after, again, the county executives pushed very hard on this because of what was going on with the protests and the desire of our faith-based leaders who wanted to reconnect with their congregants, and we got the churches open to 25% of capacity. Now, if you have a funeral in a church, the capacity now is 25% of that particular location. It's only 10 people if the funeral services are held in a funeral home. Again, these are the type of things that just befuddle us at times. So at least you know what the rules of engagement are right now, and again, if there are any changes, we will certainly let you know.
And speaking of befuddling rules, two related questions. When are larger non-graduation ceremonies or gatherings going to be allowed outside, and how many people are allowed in phase 2 outside gatherings? Will that change in phase 3 or phase 4?
Is that a home too, right?
Yes.
Okay, look, the state of New York still currently limits social gatherings to 10 or fewer individuals. And I understand this doesn't exactly make sense when compared to some of the other standards that now that so many businesses are able to reopen. The bottom line is that we will continue to ask New York State for clarity and frankly ask for some common sense. That seems to be what's missing here at this point. People get locked into certain approaches and they can't get out of their own way and start thinking a little differently, think out of the box a little bit. And I understand that. In bureaucracy, that's not unusual. But county executives in the control room, myself included, obviously, have been pushing for that out-of-the-box thinking. The bottom line is this. Let me make this really simple. Part of this question involves at a home, a gathering at a home. I cannot even begin to even conceive of if you are at your home and you have a gathering and it's over 10 people on your property, I can't foresee in my wildest imagination any member of law enforcement, any inspector going up to you and giving you a hard time. It's just not going to happen. I have to be honest with you. I'm not saying don't be careful, you can do certain things. I'm just telling you that you have rights as a citizen of this county. You have rights as an American citizen. And the bottom line is that if you're at your house, my fiance and I walk around the area where she lives in Westchester County. People don't have masks on, which they don't have to because you're walking in the street, you're socially distant, you're not within 6 feet of people, and that's fine. And there are people on their lawns. It's kind of like the days when I grew up in Brooklyn. Everybody was sitting on the porch, people outside. What is wrong with that? Why would anyone in their right mind ever interject themselves and try to make an issue with that? It just is not going to happen. So that's all I can tell you. And if something that ever happened, believe me, I would have something to say. So enjoy your lives. I mean, let's exercise. If government is not going to use common sense at times, you use common sense and go from there.
Exactly. We've come a long way from the days in March and April when when everyone was supposed to stay indoors. We're in an entirely different situation now.
It is a totally different ballgame. We are not having hundreds of people going to the hospital. We're not having people dying left and right every day. We are down, never to minimize a death because every death's a tragedy. But we're losing 1 or 2 people a day now, every couple of days. It's not the crisis that it was. And we have things in place to make sure it doesn't become the crisis that it was. Let's use some common sense now. And again, I agree 100%. Go out, again, enjoy your life.
And one just follow-up question in a similar vein. This person writes in, my son's school graduation is virtual. I was thinking of having an outdoor viewing with my family, around 25 people. Do you think that would be possible?
Again, this is against the governor's executive orders. I can't advocate for you to violate it. However, as I said, I'm hopeful some of these rules will be clarified. Common sense will prevail. But again, as I said earlier, especially our graduates, I've spoken to a number of families who had their seniors graduating, and this this has not been a good spring for anybody. I mean, this has been a test of the times for all of us. And those young people who worked very hard for 4 years to graduate, they deserve their moment in the sun. And this office worked directly with BOCES and some of the school districts to try to get across some options they could have had. But to not be able to have, again, a gathering at your home to acknowledge a young person for a success in his or her life is unfathomable to me. And again, I cannot even envision how anyone would make an issue of this. And, you know, again, I would say utilize a bit of common sense here, tempered with the fact that our young people deserve an acknowledgement for what they've done over the last 4 years.
Okay. And on to the last question of the day here. A resident writes in, some of us have grown accustomed to what they call new quarantine driving rules, saying that law enforcement may have been hesitant to make routine traffic stops out of a fear of contracting the virus. Do you think that local law enforcement could give us a heads up as to when they're going to start handing out traffic tickets again, so that people can transition back to normal driving?
That's what it is.
The last thing we need is a mass gathering at traffic court.
Oh. You know, a friend of mine texted me earlier today and told me that he was going to try to get a question in, and knowing this person, he's a North Rocklander, I have a strange feeling that this was probably his question, because it's a bit off the wall like he is, as a matter of fact, but he's a great guy. You know, one thing you bring up here, and John and I, we were talking about this the other day about people not going out. We don't see any traffic out or anything like that, and you got to kind of wonder if people are getting rusty. So I would also say to people, if you haven't driven your car in a week, drive slowly for a few minutes until you get used to the wheel. But what I would say to the person who brought the question up, if it's who I think it is, the police officers up in North Rockland know you already, so I'd be very careful if I were you. but the one thing I can tell you is law enforcement is going to ensure public safety. They do a great job of it, and I will probably think that the likelihood that if somehow we had a post event of many people going to traffic court, the governor's been very good at issuing emergency orders. He'd probably get a traffic court gathering exception rule put together, and he'll announce it at 11:30 in the morning on one of his broadcasts. So we'll just let it go there. Thanks for the laugh. I could use it. We have a couple of numbers I just want to give out to you. You've heard it before, but I'm going to repeat it. The Department of Health hotline here in Rockland County is 845-238-1956. They can give you great guidance, obviously, for questions you may have. The PAWS hotline, New York State, for violations you might see, is 833-789-0470, 833-789-0470. Couple of websites, the rocklandgov.com, which is our website here in Rockland County. Tremendous resource for information if you wanted to find out about the virus, things that have been happening, how things have changed, differences in approach as far as self-protection to this virus. Forward.ny.gov, forward.ny.gov. We've mentioned this a couple of times. This is where the phases 1 through 4 are, where the business templates are, where you can get information on opening your business, get information about whether or not your place where you're working is comporting with the regulations and policy and procedures that are laid out to make sure that, to the extent practicable, that you do not get sick. And finally, ny.gov, ny.gov. That's the New York State website. The emergency orders themselves are there. I caution you, if you try researching them, you're going to probably have a difficulty seeing after a while. It's a very lengthy process, and the problem we've been seeing at times is that there are cross purposes. One order will say one thing, another will say another thing. This is why I have a county attorney, because I could not deal with this. So I caution you, if you go to that website I would suggest you go to the forward.ny.gov website. It's a lot more friendly to non-attorneys like you and I. You'll get some information as exactly what's going on. With that, I would just say this. I went out yesterday. I got, as most people could see, I got my hair cut, because I'm allowed to get my hair cut now. I didn't do what the Chicago mayor did, obviously. And and also we went to a local establishment for dinner outside. It's time to get out. And I know there's trepidation, I know there's concern, but it's time to get out and engage back in the life that we used to have here in Rockland County. I can't make that any more clear, and what I assure you, and I ask you to trust me on this, that we are doing everything possible to do things the right way, that we are not going to hide anything if it's not going well. The issue here is about the people of Rockland County and the future of this county, and getting back to a sense of normalcy where we were, which made this county great. And that's what I'm going to ask people to think of. It was a great feeling yesterday. Not so much the haircut, that was okay. But it was great being out with friends, you know, outdoor dining, we're right by the water, having a bunch of laughs. I didn't realize how much I missed this. I was a couple of times during the day, I said, let me give a friend of mine a call, maybe we'll have lunch, and I realized I couldn't have lunch because the restaurants are closed. I didn't realize how much I missed this. It was an amazing feeling just to go out and just laugh and have a cocktail and have dinner. Just an unbelievable experience. It shows you what we miss when we miss humanity. It shows you what happens when we are away from other people. It shows you what life is all about. So I would just ask you, in addition to doing right by yourself, you're going to do right by those businesses that have been hanging on by a thread, who need you right now. Just like you needed them when your child needed a sponsor for their sports team. Just like you needed them when your not-for-profit was looking for journal ads and you went in and put down $50 or $100 on a journal ad for you. Looking for your support now, because they're the organization, the businesses that have our volunteer firefighters and our ambulance corps, and when something happens, they let them go out the door and go tend to it. I'll never forget Vanderbilt Lumber, when I first moved up here years ago. I went there, I had a million things to do with the houses back in the early 80s, and fire alarm went off, which I didn't even know what the fire alarm was at that point. I was a city kid. And three guys go running out of the store, and I asked the proprietor, you know, Billy Dibbois, whose son played football with my oldest son, what's going on? He goes, they're volunteer firefighters. And I said, really? Now, I didn't know. I didn't even realize we had a volunteer force. I was very new to this community. That's why these businesses are important. And not to mention the fact they're your neighbors. The vast, vast majority of the people who are out there right now who have these businesses, they are our neighbors. There are people who we see in other places. Let's take care of each other, and this is one simple way you can do it. You'll feel good about it, and they'll feel good about it. So with that, I'll give you I'm being told to wear the mask?
Yes.
Me?
If you do go out there, and we want you to, but do so safely, wear a mask, wash your hands often for 20 seconds at least, please.
This is why I have them around, just to make sure I don't mess up. But anyway, I'm going to wish you all an early good weekend. This is Thursday. We'll be back on Tuesday at 4:15 p.m. to again bring you an update on what's happening here in Rockland County. Have a wonderful weekend.